The wind tore across the ridge like something alive, clawing at Aria Calloway's hood and rattling the thin metal of her rifle. Frost crept along her gloves, dulling her fingers, while her radio whispered bursts of broken static, fading in and out like a failing breath. She was completely alone. No voices, no reassurance. Only the Arctic darkness and the silent responsibility of 8 lives moving beneath her position. Hours earlier, everything had felt different, warmer, louder. Someone had laughed when she entered the briefing room. Nothing cruel. Just careless. "Who's the kid?" someone muttered. Another voice followed, leaning back casually. "She's our overwatch." Captain Ronan Hale hadn't looked up from the map. Just a brief nod. No introduction. No welcome. None of it mattered now. The valley below pulsed with movement, drawing in its rhythm, too precise to be random. Aria's breath fogged her mask as she settled her eye to the scope. Her heart was steady. Her hands were calm. Then, through the screaming wind and the dead radio, a single shot split the night and everything changed. Aria Calloway arrived at Forward Outpost Kestrel just before dawn. When the sky couldn't decide whether night was finished or not, the wind shoved against her like it wanted her gone, cutting through layers of cold weather gear, slipping into every seam. She stepped off the transport without ceremony, rucksack centered perfectly on her back. Rifle case balanced in one gloved hand, she was smaller than most compact. Not fragile, built for precision rather than presence. Her dark hair was secured in a regulation bun beneath her hood, flawless and tight. Her face was young, but not soft. Her eyes carried a stillness that didn't ask for attention. No one greeted her. A few soldiers glanced up as she passed, then looked away. Not hostile. Not curious. Just dismissive. Fragments of conversation followed her down the narrow corridor toward the armory. That's her looks lost. No one said it to her directly. They didn't have to. Aria found her assigned bunk, stowed her gear with practiced efficiency, and went straight to the armory. She moved quietly, not from fear but from habit. Every step had purpose. Every motion mattered. She laid her equipment out on the metal table piece by piece. Like a ritual, rifle, optic, bipod, databook, kestrel, range cards. Each item cleaned, checked, and aligned with exact spacing. Her gloved fingers were steady despite the cold. Cold like this kills. Faster than bullets. The voice came from behind her. She didn't flinch. Staff Sergeant Cole Mercer stood several feet back. Arms crossed, eyes sharp and unsmiling. His reputation always arrived before he did senior sniper, the standard. The name spoken in low voices when people thought no one was listening. Aria turned to face him. "Yes, Sergeant." He stepped closer, eyes scanning her setup without touching a thing. Cold bore shift at -30. 3 mils high, 0.1 left. Instant. His eyebrow lifted. "Density altitude? Compensated in my dope card? Trigger freeze protocol?" "I don't let it," she said calmly. I breathed through it. For the first time, Mercer studied her face, not her rank, not her size, but her eyes. "First deployment?" "Yes, Sergeant." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "If you lock up out there, people die." "I know, not if. When." "I know," she repeated. He nodded once and walked away. It wasn't approval, but it wasn't dismissal either. The briefing room was crowded. Voices echoed off metal walls. Coffee steamed. Maps glowed on screens. Aria took a seat near the back, hands folded in her lap. Captain Ronan Hale stood at the front. Tall and broad-shouldered, commanding the space without effort. "This valley is the choke point," he said, pointing to the terrain overlay. "Target is here. We go in quiet, fast, and we don't linger." Lieutenant Noah Reading cleared his throat. "Overwatch is one shooter." Hale nodded. Reading frowned. "That ridge is brutal." "Weather alone, she'll handle it," Hale said. Reading glanced at Aria for the first time, really looked. His concern wasn't cruel. It was cautious, protective. "With respect, sir." "She's new." Hale's jaw tightened. "This isn't a training run. There will be no babysitting." The words weren't aimed at her, but they landed anyway. Aria didn't react, didn't defend herself. She didn't need to. Later, alone in her bunk, she removed her gloves and rubbed warmth back into her hands. From a small inner pocket, she pulled out to worn dog tags her father's. Their familiar weight rested in her palm. He had taught her to shoot, when she was barely tall enough to rest a rifle on a bench. He never praised her, never raised his voice. He corrected her breathing, her posture, her patience. "Don't chase the shot," he used to say. "Let it come to you." He died when she was 16. After that, she trained harder than anyone not to prove something, but to be worthy. She hadn't chosen this path for glory. She chose it because it was honest. Because here, competence mattered more than charisma. Because responsibility meant lives that made sense to her. That night, as she zipped up her cold weather layers and checked her rifle one final time, she felt the weight of what was coming. Not fear, awareness. She was ready. Even if no one else believed it yet. The helicopter cut through the night like a blade. Rotors shredding the wind and hurling snow into violent spirals that vanished as quickly as they formed. Aria sat near the open door, knees braced, hands resting lightly on her rifle case. Red interior light washed every face in shadow. No one spoke. Captain Hale stood clipped into the overhead line. Lieutenant Reading checked his tablet. Mercer sat across from Aria, arms folded, expression unreadable. When the ramp dropped, the cold rushed in like a living force. They moved fast, silent, disciplined. Aria broke off immediately, heading uphill. The ridge rose ahead like a frozen spine, jagged and unforgiving. The climb was steep, the wind strong enough to punish careless footing. She didn't rush. She counted breaths, measured steps, let rhythm take over. By the time she reached her position, the team was already moving below. She set up without hesitation. Bipod anchored. Optic cleared. Data card taped to her forearm. The world narrowed through the scope at first. The valley looked quiet. Then she saw it. Movement, deliberate, spaced, controlled, not wandering, positioning. More figures emerged. "Too many Overwatch 2 ground," she said. Multiple heat signatures. Patterned movement. Static. Then Hale's voice. Defined, patterned, not random patrols. "They're setting lanes. Overlapping fields. How certain are you?" Reading asked. A figure signaled with 2 fingers, then vanished behind cover. "I'm certain," Mercer cut in. "Describe formation." She did. Calm. Exact. Another pause. "We don't have satellite confirmation," Hale said. "I know." Static crackled. "Solar interference is spiking," Reading said. "Signal degrading." The sky above her shifted faintly, like something unseen bending. "They're waiting," Aria said. "Waiting for us." A silence. "They've built a net," she continued. "If we move straight in, they'll close it." Hale made the call. "Adjust route. Slower approach." "Aria, guide us." "Understood." Then the radio crackled again and died. She stared at it. Checked her secondary. Nothing. Below her. The team kept moving still, walking into the trap. Aria tightened her grip on the rifle. The enemy converged, closing lanes, sealing exits. This wasn't chance. It was preparation. She tracked everything, building a living map in her mind. She found the command elements lightly apart, issuing signals. Extreme range. Unforgiving wind, no spotter, no backup, just her. Her heart slowed. "Don't. Chase the shot." She waited. Wind shifted, adjusted. The commander turned. She exhaled and fired. The recoil was gentle. The silence afterward was not. Chaos erupted. Below, confusion, shouting. Aria didn't wait. She fired again and again. Leadership fell. Coordination collapsed. The ambush unraveled. Her radio crackled weakly, then died. They were alive. She knew that much. Now they were hunting her, Aria. Stayed, because that was the job. She didn't move after the last echo faded. Cheek pressed to the stock. Breathing slow, deliberate, cold gnawed at her fingers. But she didn't flex them. She opened her data book. Logging wind shifts, temperature drops, velocity pulses numbers instead of words. Precision over panic below, order dissolved into disorder. But they weren't retreating, they were searching. She read the mountain like a language. She'd learned long ago patterns in snow. Movement against wind, discipline hidden in chaos. Cold hides mistakes, her father had said, but it reveals discipline. Figures moved uphill, sweeping. She waited, not unprepared, not panicked, not uncertain. The mountain was speaking, and Aria Calloway was listening. She wasn't a mystery to herself. She was simply unseen by everyone else for now. And she understood that this invisibility might be the last advantage she had. The radio went dead without warning. No crackle, no tone, just silence. Aria tapped the unit, checked the cable, then the backup clip to her vest. She adjusted the antenna, shifted its angle, switched channels, then switched again. She cycled through every frequency and contingency she knew by heart. Nothing. The mountain swallowed her signal as if it had never existed. Her gaze snapped back to the valley. The team was still moving, a dark shapes cutting through the snow. Careful and steady, unaware that the net was already tightening around them. Her chest tightened. She raised the radio again. Ground. This is Overwatch. Do you copy? Silence? She tried again. And again, nothing. The cold pressed deeper into her bones, but it wasn't the temperature that made her hands feel heavy. It was the realization settling into her breathing, into her muscles. They couldn't hear her and they were walking straight into the trap. Aria scanned faster, building a living map of the battlefield in her mind. What she'd seen earlier was no longer theory. Enemy units were sliding into position with deliberate intent, blocking teams tucked behind rock shelves. Suppression lanes angled toward the valley floor. Heavy weapons positioned not to fire yet, but to seal escape routes. They weren't trying to stop the team. They were trying to capture them. She forced herself to stop cycling the radio. Panic would waste time, and time was already gone. Through her scope, she tracked the Team 1 operator, paused, scanned, then continued. They were alert. But alert didn't matter when the trap was patient. Her focus widened. Then she saw him. He stood apart, elevated on a rock shelf. No heavy weapon, barely moving. He didn't need to. His signals were subtle small hand motions, slight nods, a tilt of the head. Everything responded to him. Command. Aria measured the distance automatically. Her stomach tightened. It was extreme, well beyond comfortable, beyond standard. The wind cut violently across the slope, unpredictable, battering her rifle and drowning out sound. No spotter. No confirmation. No corrections. Just her and 8 lives, trusting a voice they could no longer hear. Her heart didn't race. It steadied. She pressed her cheek into the stock, letting the rifle become part of her. Her eyes flicked across her datacard angles, density, temperature, spin drift, wind. She watched the small flag she'd placed earlier. One fluttered, another stilled, then reversed. She closed her eyes for half a second and listened. The mountain always spoke. You just had to let it. Her father's voice surfaced in her memory. Don't chase the shot. Let it come to you. She waited. The commander lifted his hand. She adjusted, waited. The wind surged. She held. Then just for a breath, everything settled. She exhaled and squeezed. The recoil was soft. The silence afterward was not. The figure dropped, no stumble, no hesitation. Gone. The valley erupted into confusion, shouts, scattered movement, signals that no longer meant anything. They didn't know what had happened or where it came from. Aria didn't watch. She was already adjusting. Another leader stepped forward. She measured, waited, fired. He fell too. Formations fractured. Some ran. Some dropped prone. Others fired blindly into the dark. Aria didn't flinch. She didn't celebrate. She worked. She targeted coordinators, heavy weapon carriers, anyone trying to restore control. Each shot was deliberate. Each trigger pull had a purpose. The ambush collapsed into chaos. They weren't hunting anymore. They were surviving. She glanced once at the team. They had stopped moving, scanning, confused but alive. Her radio crackled faintly, then died again. They would make it now. But the mountain wasn't finished. She noticed the change in enemy movement, not panicked. Not random, purposeful. They were spreading outward, angling uphill, toward her. Her pulse ticked up by a single beat. She adjusted her scope and saw 3 heat signatures climbing in wide arcs, slow. Disciplined, methodical. Hunters, they knew there was a shooter. They just didn't know where. Yet she checked her ammo. Not much, not enough for a prolonged fight. She didn't move. Movement would betray her outline. She lowered magnification, widening her view to track multiple threats. Her fingers burned as sensation returned in uneven waves. She flexed them gently, one at a time. Below, the team moved again faster now, using the chaos she'd created. Something loosened in her chest. They were getting out. Her job wasn't finished. One of the climbers paused and looked up, not directly at her, but close enough. Aria froze. She let the mountain hide her. She didn't breathe. Seconds passed, then the figure turned away. Her shoulders ached. Her legs burned. She'd held the same position too long, but she didn't shift. More shapes peeled away from the valley floor. They weren't confused anymore. They were organized, and now their objective was her. She checked her escape routes. 2 options. Neither good. She'd marked them earlier, just in case. She hadn't expected to need them. Her radio remained silent. For the first time, the weight of what she'd done pressed against her, not pride, responsibility. She had taken lives to save others, and now those lives were coming for her. She thought of her father's hands, their steadiness, the way he corrected her grip and posture. Calm beats fear. The nearest hunter moved closer, scanning carefully, communicating with the others. They were good. She adjusted her position by a fraction, careful not to break her silhouette. Her breath fogged her mask. She wiped it quickly and refocused. She wasn't done. Not because she wanted glory, but because this was what she was trained to do. She fired once more, dropping a heavy weapon carrier who had repositioned near the team's escape route. The figure fell. The helicopter would have a safer approach now. Her hands trembled slightly as she lowered the rifle, not fear, fatigue. The mountain was winning. Her radio sparked briefly, then nothing. She swallowed. She'd done what she could. Now, she had to survive it. The hunters were close enough to hear boots on ice, fabric brushing rock. She pulled the rifle in tight, minimizing her outline. She wouldn't fire unless she had to. Mystery was still her strongest weapon. She allowed herself one last look at the valley. The team was moving fast. They would make it. She pressed her forehead briefly to the stock, not in prayer, but in resolve. Then she moved slowly, silently, becoming shadow, becoming wind, becoming something they would later speak of in whispers. For now, she was just a young soldier in the dark, hunted, exhausted, and still doing her job. Because that was what mattered. The helicopter came in low, lights dim, rotors tearing the cold air into spirals of snow. The team boarded and practiced silence. Aria was the last up. Hands reached for her without hesitation, hauling her inside. The door slammed. The aircraft lifted hard into the wind. Inside, no one spoke. Breath steamed. Blood marked the floor. No one complained. Captain Hale finally turned to her. His expression changed recognition, not doubt. "You broke the ambush," he said. Aria nodded once. Mercer watched her, recalibrating something behind his eyes. No one applauded. No one spoke. Later in the command tent, Colonel Evelyn Graves reviewed the data conditions that should have made the shot impossible. She watched twice. Then again, "You didn't guess," she said. "No, ma'am." "You didn't rush." "No, ma'am." "Oh." She nodded. "You will be known as White Ghost," not announced. Just stated. No one argued. Aria didn't smile. She didn't correct them. She didn't need to. She wasn't a rookie anymore, not because of a name, but because no one would ever look at her the same way again. That night, sitting alone on her bunk, dog tags warm against her chest, she thought not of the shots, but of the waiting. The moment she knew no one else could fix it. Courage, she realized, wasn't loud. It was heavy. It was lonely. It was necessary. And sometimes the strongest people are the ones you almost overlook because they don't announce themselves. They just hold the line.